So, Harry, finally we're doing this together, my friend. I want you to introduce yourself
Yeah,
in a way that, suits you. And how do you want to introduce yourself to the people, the growing audience we have here at the High Living Show? Over to you, my friend.
for sure. Well, Chad, again, thank you so much for inviting me on. I know we've pushed this back a couple of times because
We have.
me being whereabouts in the world, but yeah, I guess my name's Harry Baird. I've been in the cannabis industry since I think 2020, 2021. Worked for a few different companies within the space, and now am the brand manager for Zetra. Got a couple of products in the space, and yeah, it's been a whirlwind adventure since joining this
Yes.
industry. I think it has its ups and downs, and I think everyone can say for every 1 year, it's 7 years in this space. So it does feel like quite a long time, but I've been around cannabis since I was about 18, 19. I've been lucky enough or, chosen certain parts of my life that has led to me being around cannabis for since then. And I think just coming into this space has really been a massive eye opener, not just for cannabis, but for the medical space itself and, how we can treat things and do things. And yeah, it's been crazy. And I guess, meeting you in the early days was quite fun. We've been talking
Yep.
for
Long time.
since that time, long time now, and it's been
Yep.
amazing watching you grow and do what you've been doing. So yeah, I yeah can't be thankful enough for being on the podcast with you.
Thank you, man. I was about to say all those same things to you. And just to serious and just to start, you've got a very important voice, you've got a very important style. And then I think what people will see today is that difference. And I feel fortunate because, yeah, we've been jamming for years and we have
Yeah,
our typical check-ins. And this is the power of the network, right? The power of just staying in touch and checking in with one another. So it's an absolute joy to explore what we're like, and just yeah, I think probably better to go for you. Like, what is it about where you're at the moment that makes us want to do this pod? Like, what
I think
fascinates you?
coming in, I think it's been coming into my own sort of world at the moment. I've partnered with an amazing company that's been able to facilitate this brand, and really being able to put my own spin on how I believe cannabis can be looked at. And I don't think it's, a be all and end all, but I think the view that I have on cannabis can play a big part in understanding how to consume, where and why, and I think being able to sort of broaden the horizon and expand the conversation on where we're already at. I remember back in the day when I first got into this job, you only spoke about THC and that was it. You didn't talk about terpenes, and
Yep.
the conversation's been forever evolving. And I think I'd like to be able to put my spin on it to hopefully evolve that conversation just that little bit more with everyone within the space to go, yep,
Yep.
I can see that. And, I think some people may not agree, which is totally fine. That's everyone's opinion. But I think if you don't agree, come have a chat and let's have an awesome discussion about it because I'd like to know where you sort of stand on it. But at the end of the
Mhm.
day, I think being in this position that I've, been fortunate enough to put myself in, I've been able to talk to some amazing individuals in this industry who have nodded their head and gone, actually, yeah, I really like that way of talking about consumption and cannabis and how
Mhm.
that can provide a deeper conversation, not just for the doctor, but for the patient as well. So I feel like everyone's been listening and heard.
Yeah, awesome. And I know we're going to get there. Before we do, because you do have a unique take on it, I think what you mentioned there is very interesting that it was all buzz around THC potency. And
Yeah.
what I got the sense is that you're saying it's starting to change in somewhat. Is that the case? Like, where in your eyes and from your position, where are we at and where is the industry at and what can patients expect? Lots of questions there, but see where you go with it.
We've definitely evolved from just oil. We've now got over
Hmm.
1,000 products on the market, which means concentrates, gummies, flowers,
Yep.
oils, pessaries, the list goes on. So the conversation needs to change depending on the product, right? But we've been able to go from THC to, okay, we've got THC CBD, we've got THC CBD and other cannabinoids, we've got terpenes now, we've got the entourage effect, we've now got how we cure the plant, and we've also got now how do we consume the plant. So it's like, well, if there's that many different variations, then we can't have the same conversation for each one. But you can maybe put like a broad umbrella and go, well, if you're having this, you can sort of go this way with it, and you can consume it at this time, so it'll be good for this. And it's all, dependent on the person. But
Yes.
I think we're able to sort of talk more about,
Yes.
where is the person, how are they feeling, and we're going to get into it, but the effect that they're looking for. Because
Yes.
I actually met someone from Israel a couple of weeks ago on a road trip for work, and it was really interesting. So they buy black market. They're on here on a work visa, so they're not able to go through the medical thing. But one of the things that they said was that it always made them drowsy and, very sedated. Whereas back in Israel, they would wake up in the morning, go for a walk, have a coffee, consume cannabis. It's very uplifting and energizing, and then sort of get on with the day. And I sort of reflected on that conversation that we had, and it was really interesting because I think as an Australian consumer culture, because of the laws and everything that we've done, we haven't had that experience of, having consuming cannabis as first thing in the morning, right? Whether it be whatever,
Sure.
formulation it's in, but it's just not something that the Aussie culture really does. And if it is, it's very hidden, right? But for I would say most Aussie consumers, it's sort of that end of the day thing. So we have those types of products that are very sedating and relaxing and calming. So yeah, it was really interesting to have that conversation with that person around, what they're buying and what they're seeing versus what they have back home.
Very interesting as you're talking as well, with what I see happening in terms of some changes coming. Things that you're speaking about now would increase the risk of a patient, right? So, and I
Correct.
think that's kind of different. I think we're at a pathway where it is, where are we going to go with this? And importantly, I think what you've mentioned there is one of the key moments that helped you categorize that the way that one consumes can be different according to what's going on in their life, what sort of their circumstances they are. And so it's having having many options. Can I
Mm,
tap into something personal for you? Because what I get the
of
sense,
course.
and you've just touched on something, but if you're willing to speak to it, please do. But you've obviously had that encounter with your friend from Israel. But I think you probably already had your own beliefs about that before in terms of the way and your relationship with cannabis yourself, right? And then you've heard this and it's kind of connected those data points. Am I correct in that? Or did the
It was
yeah.
it was something that I was already thinking about, and where we're at, you need to understand the patient, the consumer, right? We're in a consumerism world, so it's understanding, we have a business to run, so we need to understand, what is something that's going to appeal to the market.
Yep.
But I think talking to this Israeli person really sort of set it in stone, going, I think the culture that we have really sets the standard for what the market is almost. Understanding my own sort of personal experience with cannabis, and everyone is able to have good and bad relationships with substance, whether that be alcohol, cigarettes, food, water, whatever it is. I know in my time I haven't had the greatest relationship with cannabis, but that was because of the education and understanding of it, right? Whereas now, and especially, having 9 years as a snowboarder traveling, I've ACL, meniscus, I've done both ligaments in my foot, torn ab, concussions, shoulder, I'm surprised I'm still together, but I now have a better understanding of my own body, what I can and can't take, which will cause inflammation. So being able to use cannabis correctly has changed my life dramatically, and not just in a form of medicine, but as a social person as well.
Yes.
I feel more myself rather than, say, consuming alcohol. You know, my fiance and I, we've had some amazing things happened over the last couple of months. So we've had a celebratory, cocktail here and there, which is amazing,
Awesome.
and that's the relationship that I have with alcohol. But
Yep.
buying a 6-pack or a carton just isn't something that I do anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. As you're talking, I've been reflecting on what got me started in some ways with On Tracker and what accelerated it. And it was exactly what you're saying is that I had different experiences and different circumstances where I started consuming cannabis when I was a cancer patient, right? But
Mm.
at the same time, I was then trying to start changing my identity to say, well, I just don't want to be this cancer person, like this patient. I do want to start, I got ideas and I want to, I want to expand my career again. I don't want to stay under DSP my whole life. There's things I want
Yeah.
to do. And so with that, while being on, extremely toxic chemotherapy, being then able to maintain different hats that one would wear, particularly in the past, I worked in government. So, and there was
Mm.
a capacity for me to be able to perform assessments and work at a certain level. And I know that if I was consuming cannabis, maybe like I would after work at that time, there probably could have been, there would have been impairment. There's no doubt about it.
Mm.
And there would have been probably deficits in performance because of the way I was needing my medicine later. But understanding effect, right? So understanding I've been in this place before, i.e., I can consume something. I kind of know how it's going to take me to be with this dose. I can be on this level and I can maintain it in this situation at this time. I'm not going to get into too
Yeah.
many more details, but you see where I'm going. That was the thinking. And then there's different family circumstances. There's different meetings. There's all these different ways that I was starting to understand my relationship with the plant and how I can best optimize it for effect. Over to you to kind of continue that idea of set and setting and then effect, because I think this is something that I know Tegan Skates was talking about this a long time ago. And I know that you've
Yeah.
kind of taken this by the horns, and I expect you to be on her podcast soon chatting about this. But yeah, keep
Actually,
please.
FYI, I actually caught up with Tegan not too long ago and we had an amazing chat. And she was like, I was talking about this. I'm like, I know, it's so good. Yeah, anyways. But yeah, no, shout out to Tegan. Lovely. Yeah, man, it's definitely something that I've really sort of taken on in talking about, being able to understand the product a little bit more. It's the whole set and setting and the effect. You and I have had many conversations around ayahuasca, psilocybin, MDMA, and those types of
Mm-hmm.
guided trips where, the set is you. It's where you're at in your life and
Yep.
where you're sort of at in your life. The setting is the environment that you create for it. And then obviously with those types of guided trips, it's more about your intention. So what are you bringing to this and what are you looking to sort of get out of it? Whether it be, going down that route of like understanding trauma from
Mm-hmm.
earlier, or whether it be trying to figure out where you're at now, or maybe trying to understand who you can be in the future, right? There's so many different intentions you can bring, but actually like writing something down and going, this is my intention for this guided trip can really do wonders. And that's what sort of got me onto the whole set and setting with the plant. And you couldn't do intention with the plant like you could, but for me it resulted around the effect of the plant, because that's effectively what this plant is going to give you. Now every plant is different. Everything can be, whether it be energizing, uplifting, whether it be
Mm-hmm.
sedating, calming, relaxing, whether it's euphoric, or, you just makes you giggle. There's so many different effects that the plant can give you. But if you're in tune to your body, in tune to what you're doing, and can sort of understand, okay, well, if I'm consuming cannabis around 3, 4 o'clock in the day, what effect do I really want at that time? Because for some of us, it may be, well, I'm exercising and walking the dog. For others, it might be, well, I'm wrapping up my work day, but I need cannabis because I'm in XYZ for whatever indication it is, but I still need
Yep.
to be alert. So do I really want to be fully sedated, or do I want to be maybe more of a body relax with a cognitive high that allows
Yep.
me to still be with it and type it and not make mistakes, and just understanding that little bit deeper of the plant and
Mm-hmm.
the actual person itself.
Mm.
And that's where, for me, when I consume, that's something I really take into, something personal, because it's like, well,
Yep.
if I'm catching up with friends, but I've been on the road for 4 hours today and we're catching up at the end of the day, well, I don't really want to be sedated, but I do want to be relaxed, but I also still need to be able to
For sure.
converse and, crack jokes and,
Yeah,
make
yeah.
sure that I'm with the conversation, so that's something I need to be sort of thinking about. So it's like, okay, where do I need to be and what product is going to do that for me? And I think
Correct.
if we can understand, not just the potency, but along with other cannabinoids, be able to understand the terpenes that are involved and what those effects of those terpenes are. And it might be, say, the top 5 or 6, and go, okay, cool. Well, if these are the temperatures that their boiling point is at, maybe I can play with my vaporizer to be able to really pinpoint something that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of, it is experimental, but from my standpoint, if I understand my product well enough from the growers that I'm getting it from, and whether that be in gummy form or flower form or whatever it is,
Yep.
I need to be able to understand it to be able to relay that information back to my doctors or
Yeah.
whoever, to then be able for them to be able to go, okay, cool, I know exactly where this conversation is going. If I have a patient going, oh, I need X, Y, and Z around this time.
To double tap on something you just said, because I think it's important. So you've been driving for 4 hours, you want to see your mates afterwards, and it's what sort of, which Harry kind of turns up in some ways, right? And in some ways, right? So you can think about that set and setting, but then it's also about the product selection. It's also the route of administration, which I think we'll double tap in, and it's the dose, right? So if we have a look at
100%.
you going into that situation with your friends, understanding titration is obviously fairly important as well, because it's like who's arriving, right? Because if it's flour, it's likely very fast titration, and you're there, or you're already in your state, yeah, and that's kind of just
Correct.
I'm here and this is me. But if you're taking
Yeah.
that gummy, you're taking the gummy, you're already knowing that you've consumed, and like you're already in el camino, like you're already on the way. So there's like there's a like a sense of I'm
I'm
riding with you.
arriving.
Yeah, I'm arriving, and during I'm going to hang out. It's going to come on, and it's going to be a natural. Can you speak to that? Like if you can go into,
Yeah,
because I'm not a flower guy at all. I don't do it because of my
true.
lungs in the past. So I know that titration. Oh, I'm going to go see some people here. All right, I know I'm going to be at this dose. I know I'm going to be at this product, and this is how I'm going to kind of get there. Talk to that a little bit, man. How do you resonate?
Yeah, it's interesting. Hey, I think back to my days when I lived in Canada, and there was not even a single forethought of that. It was like, okay, I'm just going to consume now and off I
Yeah,
go,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like, who
yeah, yeah,
knows, right?
yeah,
Whereas now it's like I have a better understanding of the plant and the product, and what
yeah. More mindful
temperature that I can
consumption.
vaporize at it. Yeah, 100% mindful consumption. That's a beautiful word. And it's not a lot. It like, if you weigh it out, it's probably around that 0.5 grams, and that's is able to get me through, the lower back pain that I get,
Yep.
versus, if I take more than that, well, yeah, I'm probably gonna want to just go home and not bother anyone and just, annoy the missus or something.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I love when looking at dosing. I know we chatted earlier around snowboarding and the mountain. And the way I quite like to look at dosing at times is you can think about a massive dump, right? So you've had one of those weeks where traditionally it was knockoff time and people are in the pub at 3, blue collar sort of
Yeah.
star, right? And you just be there, and that would be the way to unwind at the end of the week. And so if you think about like the cultural place, that's already what we know. So it's kind of changing behavior.
Mm,
So if you use the mountain approach, there's a big dump that comes in. However, the route of consumption is, you're probably going to be pushing to sort of your optimal
100%.
level to be like, I need to relax. It's probably just me at home or me and my family, no pressure, just completely relaxing, right? And that dosing
Yeah.
could be the weekend dose, right? But then there's
Yeah,
other
yeah.
times where you probably need to be on your game a little bit. So it's just that little bit of a dusting. Yeah.
Just a touch.
So it's
Just a
just
touch.
that little bit of a dusting on the mountain. So yeah, I love
And
going there, because I think this is not I think the outside perception could be all cannabis is the same. Because if you don't know it,
yeah,
how are you meant to know that there's different approaches to it? And it would just be
of
through
course.
a lens of risk, which is, if you're consuming in the morning, you've got an issue. There's a big problem there. And then if it's
Yeah.
like bigger doses, why are you doing this alone? Like there's stigma, no doubt, around use. How are doctors, what's, with that segue, how are doctors kind of responding to you
Set
talking
and setting.
around set and setting, you talking about
It's
effect?
actually
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really positive. It just provides them with just that little bit more information. They've already been on, whether they go on Mediwana or they're on Catalyst or they look up Canna reviews or wherever it is they go to get more information. It's still, across a lot of the platforms, it still gives you the same amount of information, but maybe just delivered in a different way. Whereas if you can talk about what they can ask the patient, going, okay, cool. So you're looking for a a daytime strain, and that's maybe all the information they can get. They can go, when are you looking to consume, and where are you? Have you just gotten home? Are you
Yeah.
still at work? Are you, with the family, or whatever it is?
Yeah.
They can ask a few more questions that just gets a little bit more info from them, which
Yeah.
then they can, if they have the understanding of the plant, they can go, okay, cool. You actually want to have something like this because you said you're looking for a day strain, but you're consuming it around between 2 and 3 o'clock, which, if we look at the circadian rhythm of it all, that's sort of that end of day, but you're still very active, but you're saying that, the pain's kicking or whatever it is, it's something's happening and you need something to be able to alleviate that. So, okay, cool. Why don't we give you something that's going to be, say, calming, but still very hyper focused? And
Yes.
again, I've got friends who have ADHD, and sometimes when you say, oh, this is actually quite sedating, they're like, oh, I get really uplifted from that. So yeah, everyone's going to be different. Everyone has a different take on it. But I've been doing a bit of patient feedback on the products, and everything that I've been saying around those products is exactly what I'm getting back from patients going, yeah, this is exactly, because that's the time that I need this, and it's helping me with this. So it does sort of put you into that spot of going, okay, cool, you can categorize the plant a little bit more. Yes, it may vary from person to person, but
Yeah.
on the whole, it is doing what it's saying it's going to do.
It's amazing. And it's making it personal, right? Like
Correct.
there's no, if I take something, you take something, we get a batch of 15 people, there's no way we can predict this is how everyone is going to respond. Because you could have someone who's tolerant. They're like, oh, I've been hearing about cannabis for a while. I know I had some ages ago and it didn't work too well. And it's like, maybe you could start with X amount. But there was actually like proper, um, you know, maybe that individual actually just was so intolerable to potentially THC that it's a
Yeah.
CBD, it's one of the other minors, it's changing that route of administration. It's like a number of different factors which can help educate people that are still on that fringe of coming into cannabis and give him that education. So it's not just a case of take this and then
Let me know how you go.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, where we're going in the market as well, we're seeing concentrates come out, which I think is amazing. The fact that we can have such a pure product that has been extracted via water and then, freeze dried, pressed, something comes out so pure, to be able to have it at such a low dose but gives you such an amazing effect. I think
Yep.
it's amazing. It's really cool to see. And,
If
I
someone's new
think
to this, Harry, can you just tell them, so what does that mean? So if someone is here and they're listening and they're like, he said concentrate, like what does that mean? How
for
does someone
sure.
consume it? What does that mean? What are you talking about there?
So, talking about concentrates, it's effectively a purified product of cannabis. So effectively, we're playing with just trichomes here. We're looking to be able to detach all the trichomes from the plant through water, so solventless extracts, which is done in a big container, which is then agitated, which then falls through, coming through and collecting those trichomes through different bags, which allows the trichomes to fall through. And then that there is then air dried and then pressed to create this really wonderful golden ooze. And, concentrates aren't new. They've been around for a long time. People probably may have heard them as dabbing. I think there is a bit of a stigma around dabbing because, there are things as, getting a blowtorch and,
Yeah.
hot knives and all the rest of it, which can be quite scary. But I think with the
Yep.
evolution in technology, we've been able to see some amazing devices come through that makes it very consumer friendly and be able to dose accordingly, which is really cool.
Yeah, you're right. I think it does get a little bit like there's levels to cannabis, like there's levels to anything. And there's like people that are on the fringe and they would go, oh, I would try a gummy, right?
Yes,
Not most, but increasingly it's
for
fairly
sure.
social acceptable. And then there could be, oh, I'm gonna have a little toke on a joint, or there could be a vape that gets passed
Yeah,
through. And you kind of go through.
yeah.
If you're in a room and someone pulls out the glass pipe and then there's the blow
Yeah.
and they're starting to
And they got the
dab.
banger and the nail. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
That's just,
confronting, man.
it is.
It
Yeah.
is.
So what are some of these new devices that you're seeing? Like give some
Um,
people that,
Yeah, I've been following Jolly Roger from Puffco for a while now, and that sort of
got it.
opened my world into concentrates. And then it was my first time over in South Africa where I really got to see the Puffco device in its effect and really see an array of concentrates, which I thought was really cool. And to be able to see that well, for me personally, I was able to consume these and sit at a really nice, comfortable level of high, but I could also change my high without getting higher, which I thought was quite incredible.
Mm,
I didn't,
mm,
just end up greened out or anything. I was still very um, conversational, meeting
mhm.
lots of new people and learning so much, I guess, as well about, the South African grey market and everything that's going there. Shout
Mm.
out to the boys at GS Labs. They really put on a show for me, which was really cool.
Awesome, man.
But yeah, that really opened my eyes. I
Mm.
really thought, okay, cool. This is that next level of cannabis that I hadn't really been introduced to before.
Yep.
It was generally gummies and flowers, and I'd seen concentrates, but never really had the confidence to really go in and go, okay, well, what's this all about? And that was also just from comfortability. I was just
Yeah.
comfortable with flower. I was able to I understand flower, I believe, at a really good level, to be able to then talk about it with healthcare professionals and friends and family and the rest of it. But I really sort of sat in the shadows and just went full dive in onto concentrates because I don't know, I just like the idea. And at the end of the day, everyone's a consumer, and the devices that the guys at Puffco were bringing out, I was like, man, that's a really cool device, and it's not confronting.
Mm.
It's very relaxed. It doesn't make people go, oh, what's that? They're more intrigued. They go, what is this? Show me more.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I think that's a really, really cool aspect of those types of devices. And everyone wants to be able to customize something. Man, you can customize your dog's collar if you want. So, the fact that you can customize different devices for concentrates is pretty cool too.
How do you talk to how do you talk to the way that you consume in terms of what is medical, what is social? How do you make sense of that? And I'm not sure if you get a lot of criticism around it. Like
Yeah,
what do you yeah, how do you
I'm
talk
very
about
upfront.
yeah.
I'm very upfront with my consumption. I can't, you can't hide from it anymore. Like, if I told, a doctor saying, oh, I drink beer, they're like, oh, we can grab a beer afterwards, or like there's many people in our industry where we have all these events and we all go and have a drink or whatever, which is completely fine. I'm not against it. But at the same time, I want someone to come up and be like, oh, I've got this new concentrate. You want to come have a look? You're like, yeah, cool, sweet, no worries. But in regards to talking about the consumption, for me personally, I definitely sit in a medical adult, like a half 50-50. I've gone through surgeries and pain and all the rest of it, and my sleep and all that sort of
Hmm.
stuff, to fully diagnose it. But I also understand that cannabis is such a social setting as well. I've got friends from all over the world that have been consuming cannabis longer than I have. And
Yep.
the first thing we do is give each other a big hug. How you been? What's going on? Hey, let's go for a walk and catch up. And someone will, pull
Yep.
out something that we can consume, and it's really cool. And, I feel that those conversations for me, when it's involved cannabis, become a lot deeper.
Mm.
When you consume alcohol, you end up just going, oh, I love you, man. You're like, I know, thank you. But
Yeah.
how are you?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
let's go a little bit further, right?
I find that it becomes an opener for me, like much more
Mm.
heart-centered, much more thoughtful, distance myself from a lot of stress, performance enhancement 100% because
Oh
of
yeah.
concentration and focus and capacity to do insane hours while not being impaired, which all comes back to, being able to understand all the factors that you've been speaking about and what effect is this going to have on me.
Yeah.
I'd love you to talk just a little bit more around because, and let me tell you why I'm trying to press on it because increasingly we're seeing patients come to start integrating cannabis, and we're going to see other natural medicines increasingly come to look at supporting depression, supporting anxiety, treatments for sleep, treatments for PTSD, and just maintenance of there's stuff in this world for all of us, right? A lot of us,
Mm.
Les Brown, a famous motivational speaker, says that we're either coming out of a trauma, coming out of a stress, in one right now or about to get in one. And I think in any aspect of life, and if you're not, just give yourself a little high five at the moment. Yeah. But if we're looking at that idea that increasingly we're seeing billions of dollars spent in health initiatives around the world, and people are becoming more unhealthy, more, the prevalence of mental health increasingly coming. And there's that whole big, like, what is choice around medicine? And I think people are starting to understand, well, what is best for me? And I can go and have my pharmaceuticals, and I can also enjoy cannabis. How does that, like, what's your, and whether or not we can say advice, like, what would you say to help people that are still on those fringes and are still starting to make decisions in terms of what medicines they're going to use and how they can, make sense of this? Oh, you've just started to take it. All you're doing is trying to get high. Look at you. Why do you need to take
Yeah,
that? But at the same time, here's a Panadol for your headache. Like, how do you talk through some
it's
of
a
your
tricky one.
experiences?
Hey,
Yeah. What you've seen, so that one person out there, those few people out there that are listening to this, can help them make sense of where they're at, how they can support a loved one, a family member, a friend, or whoever's on their journey at the moment. Over to you, my friend. Sorry if that's a curveball.
no, it's fine, man. I think, it's not advice I have. It's just, where does your curiosity lead? If you're thinking about it that much, jump on Google, go on chat GPT, speak to someone that might be consuming. It's all about the conversation, and podcasts like yours, and there's a few more around the industry that are opening up and talking about cannabis. We can find information wherever we want.
Yeah.
I think the old stigma, the old propaganda has really lost its way. That war on drugs didn't win. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
You can go through the history of cannabis and pinpoint exactly where it all went wrong, thanks to Harry Oslinger. Um, and really go, okay, cool. And I think the biggest thing as well, if I go back, and I remember talking to my mum and dad going, oh, hey, I've got a job in the cannabis industry. The first thing they said, is it legal? It's like, no, it's not. It's I'm out the back of my car selling dope.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah.
they're like, oh, are you getting super? You're like, yes. Like, calm down. It's okay.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
you just need to be open to understanding that whatever you've been told about cannabis, if it's in a negative light, could be wrong, right?
Could
So
be.
if it could
Very
be wrong,
important lesson there, man. Very good. Could be wrong. That is excellent. Yes, good advice.
if it could be wrong, go do a bit of research. Listen to podcasts like these. Ask friends, family, anyone. There's so much truth you can find these days. Put your bullshit radar on and go, yeah, I just don't believe that. We see
Mm.
articles coming out every other week around, marijuana. It's like, fuck, just call it cannabis and let's actually be real for a second.
Mm.
I look at all these drug driving laws that we have going on. Like, how long
Mm.
has Tasmania been doing cannabis roadside testing, going, yeah, as long as you're not impaired, you're good to go? Like, how are we not looking at that and going, okay, this has been going on for 4+ years. We have
Yep.
that many people in parliament. Why are we turning a blind eye to things? I understand there is so much more.
Sure.
This is just a small little piece of the pie in, our whole Australian government, but it is one that can lead to benefit if done correctly. We
Yes.
have 4 or 5 cannabis AMCA, ACAA, AA, triple, whatever acronym it is. We have how many of those out there? And they're still turning to the industry going, hey, how can we do this? The industry as a whole could easily talk as a group in an open discussion and agree on maybe 1 or 2 things max on how we can progress this industry to be able to get the correct information out there and stop fucking pussyfooting around what is actually what we could do. I don't know.
Mm.
It really bugs me, and I still have people
Mm.
who go, "Oh, nah, you smoke marijuana, you must be a low life." There still is that stigma, but it is
Sure.
slowly fading. There are some amazing people in our industry that have an amazing voice. You had John Jones on last time, and he's one of those voices I love hearing. Yes, he is to the point. Yes, he pisses off some people, but at the same time, I have yet to hear him say something wrong. It's just other people's egos have gotten hurt.
Mm.
you know,
Interesting, man.
and that sucks. That sucks. No one likes their ego being hurt, right?
Mm,
It's fair.
mm.
But at the same time, he's been in this industry a while. He's known from experience. And like yourself and like many others in this industry, we've been around cannabis for a long time. It's time to put it in the forefront of many others to be able to help those who are unsure around, well, do I try CBD or do I just stay on my pharmaceuticals? Why does it have to be the last option? Why can't it be their first option? There's more research coming out. On Tracker has so much data coming through. There is so much going on where we can put this as a first option. It shouldn't even be first, second, last. It should be a option in our medical.
I love it, man. I love it. And I would just say to close, one of the things that I would say is that the best way to change stigma is to be the ambassador. So be the ambassador for, like, I think about this regularly because I'm overseas at the moment. So I think, how can I be a really good ambassador for Australia? And what does that mean? And bringing that back to what you're talking about, you're a living, breathing ambassador for the plant, someone that has it all together, someone that's living well, someone that's achieving in all aspects of their life, someone that's healthy, and just generally a really good guy, man. So that, continuing to be that ambassador in the way you live and the way you are, virtues rather than values, doing rather than just saying, for that, the credit to you, my friend.
Mate, you give me goosebumps.
Well, good,
It's
man.
very nice
It's
of you.
worth it.
Thank
It's
you so
worth it. It's
much, my
been a
guy.
long time. So you should. You deserve your flowers, my friend. It's been a while. And yeah, I know that before we chat, and I think it's important for everyone to hear, it was like, so, hey, after this, where do you want people to go? And you said, if they want to find me, they will.
Yeah. Come say
Speaks
good day. It's
volumes.
all
Yeah.
good.
Cool, man. I've enjoyed this, mate.
Yeah, this has been beautiful. Thank you so much, Dad. Again, I really appreciate the opportunity to have it come on here and chat with you. And yeah, I guess I haven't really spoken my mind like that in a very long time. And yeah, it felt good.
Keep being ambassador, bro. Good man. See you later.
Much love. Thank you.
Bye, mate.